Hey fellow tennis nerds, I hope all is well. Dunlop, they have announced their new SX rackets. SX stands for spin, FX stands for force equals power, and they have CX for control. So they have revealed now their line for 2022, likely to come out in January. They look yellow. As you might know, the brands have agreed that all spin rackets should be yellow. Joking, of course, but it seems to be that yellow is spin, blue is power, and then red-ish is control. That seems to be the thing they have agreed on in some weird way. But these are more yellow, more banana style from the pictures. I haven't seen this up close. I haven't received any demos as of yet. I hope to be able to receive demos and try these frames. Some of them interest me. Some seem quite similar to the predecessor. The previous generation was good. They offered a little bit more of a tighter string pattern in the center, which I liked. I did enjoy that. The swing weights were pretty high. The CX 300 Tour, I remember, was a really high swing weight, around 340 almost. And even the SX 300, which is kind of mid-plus, the middle ground version, like an Aero or an Extreme MP from Head, that version was still pretty hefty in the swing weight. So we'll see if they reduce the swing weights. They've definitely changed the SX 300 Tour. That's the biggest change to the lineup, but we'll go through that briefly in this video. So new spin generation from Dunlop. I'll talk through the different tech they have. Nothing really new here. Spin Boost Plus grommets. Previously, I think they called them Spin Boost grommets. This is something that pretty much all spin manufacturer rackets do. They include this technology, which is a grommet designed to enable more string movement. The more string movement you have in the string bed, the more spin you produce. That's the thinking behind this. It's done by Babolat for their Aero line. I think Head does it for the Extreme line, so it's nothing that's very specific. But they've, I think, changed it so it's even more movement in the string. And if you look at the diagram here, there's a lot of movement happening in the grommet. So interesting to see what will, how it will be when you play with this frame. Sometimes we have too much string movement, too much of an open pattern, too much spin focus. You're gonna get a crazy launch angle and some issues with control, but we'll see. They also have Spin Boost string tech. Interesting idea here. What I really liked about the previous version was that they actually had a pretty tight string pattern in the center of the frame. I think that was good. And now I'm worried that this one has a very, high launch angle, so we'll see. But I don't know, I haven't tried it yet. So string grid area has been increased by 22%. The main strings are 10% wider and the cross strings 11% wider. So we're seeing kind of a more open pattern. We'll see what that results in. They claim to produce more string movement, more spin, and power generation. What will happen with the control element, we don't know yet, because I haven't tried it, as I said, but interesting that they go all in on spin here. The SX lines come with the Sonic Core made with Infinergy by BASF. It's their technology that they introduced in 2018 with the new CX line, and they've held true to that technology, and it's been working well. I think the recent Dunlop rackets have all been pretty good, so especially compared to the previous generations that weren't as good in my opinion. So this they call controlled power. I mean, it's supposed to increase the rebound, have like a more of a bouncy and power return in the carbon fiber, decrease vibration. So this is in the layup, and it's supposed to reduce vibration by 37%. So yeah, this one seems to work because I do like the feel of these rackets. So the layup is not too muted. Previously, in previous rackets I've tried, and still, doesn't hurt your arm and stuff like that. So that's pretty good. V energy shaft, this is where the spin rackets usually focus on aerodynamic properties. You have the aero shaft to improve the windshield wiper, kind of that vertical movement you need to create more spin on the ball. That's how players of today, more modern players, hit the ball compared to how we used to hit the ball before. And this unique V-shaped frame, as they call it, greatly enhances frame stability and racket power. Does it work? I don't know, but it's an interesting design. You definitely notice it when you're holding the racket, because this was also in the previous generation. The SX 300 Tour has a different spec. The previous one was pretty heavy, 315 grams and 100 square inches. And now it's 98 square inches and 305 grams unstrung. This means it falls into the category of a Bubble Up Pure Aero VS or an Head Extreme Tour, two rackets I really like. So this, I think, was a good idea. Interesting. Their beam profile is still the same, 23, 26, and 23 millimeter. 1619 pattern, obviously. Stiffness a little bit higher in the listing here than the previous generation, but probably will be about the same. You can't look too much at the RA. You need to really feel it and understand how stiff a racket is. But the SX 300 Tour is the one I'm most excited about. Actually looks pretty interesting, judging by the specs, and it's a typical racket spec I like. So I really hope to test that soon. The so-called Mid Plus, the mid-ground version, the SX 300 has pretty much unchanged specs from what I can see. 300 grams unstrung weight, 32 centimeter balance, 68 stiffness, a little bit higher stiffness than the previous generation, 23, 26, 23 millimeter beam, 1619 pattern, 100 square inches. It's all pretty standard. It's a pretty standard spec for a spin racket. Then we have the lighter versions that I'm usually not as keen on, but I'll test everything equally. I had a few friends that actually really liked the lighter SX rackets when they tried them last generation. So the LS version is 285 grams and has a 32.5 centimeter balance. That's pretty much the only change from the SX 300. So if you prefer a lighter weight, a little bit easier to swing, possibly some more room for customization, you can go for the LS racket, the SX 300 LS, or you can go for the light. I always find it a bit confusing when they have an LS and a light. I think a light is enough. The light one has actually a 16-18 pattern, so even more open, even more spin, and it has a lower stiffness rating, and it's very, very light, so 270 grams, which is light, and 9.5 ounces for you who like ounces. Unstrung balance, 33 centimeter. Pretty standard specs for a light racket, but with a more open pattern. I think that's a change from last generation. Last racket in the lineup before we move on with our lives is the SX 600. This is very powerful. It's an oversized racket, and it's 16-18 as well. 64 stiffness, a little bit lower stiffness. 270 grams, and a little bit longer in length, 27.25 inches. So more power, 105 square inch head size, and a 33.5 centimeter balance. So those are the SX rackets, the updated rackets for 2022. Keen to test them if they come here in some point. Otherwise, I try to get a demo from Tennis Warehouse when they're released. I know there's some stock issues after talking to Dunlop, so we'll see what happens. But an interesting lineup. I'm mostly curious about the 98 square inch, which seems to suit me personally better, but I'm going to test as many of them as I can to give you an update. Are you curious about this line? Have you used the previous generation? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to support the work I do, please check out patreon.com/tennisnerd. And if you want to buy these rackets or any other rackets, strings, shoes, whatever, check out my affiliates, Tennis Warehouse Europe, and Tennis Only. They're in the description. Please subscribe to the channel. That would help a lot. Have a nice day, and don't forget to play some tennis.